Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This is a highly requested video, and we're going to do a very quick one on when do you ADS and when do you hip fire on Apex Legends. So let's break that down. What we're going to do is discuss the maximum distance that you can ideally hip fire and land your shots like you see there. And we're going to highlight that distance, the best distance to hip fire at, and of course the downsides of ADS and what happens to your velocity, and especially whenever you're in those encounters. So let's go ahead and ping this. This is about 20 meters. So if I look away 20 meters, I'm going to move just about here, and I'm going to land a hip fire shot. So you notice it's pretty close to the head. You'll start to notice a little bit of spread. And sometimes you get lucky with a headshot, sometimes you don't. It really depends. And let's switch to the alternator. And you notice that spread a little bit there. You see how you missed a few bullets, but you didn't miss the whole mag though. So when you back up, just a little bit at this point, you have your crosshairs right in the center. You can control that recoil a little bit, and you see the adjustment, but you start to notice that some of the bullets, unless you're controlling the recoil, start to spread. And of course, even if you back up a little further, and this is with the alternator, notice how much RNG that you start to get with the bullet spread, when you can ideally just, hip fire and get 100% accuracy. So that is where you start to notice when you get to this distance, where instead of just missing shots and blindly shooting and trying to control the recoil is when you need to ADS. This is where you want to ADS and get those shots in. And that's where it's going to be ideal. Let me adjust the volume just a little bit so it's not as loud for you guys. Now, when you're up and close, the ideal bubble is going to be around the 10 meter mark. So when you're looking around 10 meters, it is about here. I would almost say 8 to 10 meters. This bubble that's pretty much all around. Let me look around. You see the 10 meter mark? You see how we're around that 10? This is around a safe distance when you can't hip fire. Now, when you are hip firing, the plus side, the advantage is that you can definitely get a lot more movement, so then you're a harder target. Now, another quick tip is whenever you are hip firing is to make sure to complete your full animation. If you do not complete the full animation whenever you're hip firing, and you just do this, your head doesn't bob and weave as much. You have to go through the full, complete animation. I know it looks like you're moving faster when you're doing this, but your head doesn't move as much unless you do a full, complete up and down motion. This is way harder to hit, believe it or not, than anything else. Now, whenever you're ADS, here's the downside of whenever you ADS at this distance, and I tend to ADS at this distance because you want to land the headshots. When you're at close range like this and you're going for the body and you're going for becoming difficult to hit, if you're very confident with your ADS, what you could do is do the side strafe and the same thing you're doing, but while ADS. But the downside of this, notice your velocity, and I'm going to slow that down. Your velocity goes from 173 to 147. Now, there are some weapons when you see 173. Notice the wingman when you're ADS. There's not much of a downside to using the wingman whenever you're ADS this way, because it's still 173.5, and when you ADS, it's still 173.5. This is why you'll see a lot of people still ADS with the wingman and still duck and weave and bob, rather than going for the full hip fire, because then you're just kind of going for body shots when the headshot multiplier means a lot more, right? Now let's switch over to the Spitfire, and we'll notice a gun that's a lot heavier, to where you'll notice a difference. So still the side strafe here, again around that 10 meter mark here, and then when you ADS, how much slower this is and how much easier of a target you are compared to the 173. This is why individuals, when you're close range, will hip fire it like this and get a lot more bang for your buck compared to ADS. And look how much slower, no matter how much you really move, you're going to get hit. So when you're around the Spitfire range, remember that there is a lot more spread on this, so I want to highlight that for you guys, and we'll talk about breaching and building, either with hipfire or ADS. So again, at this distance, you'll notice some of your shots land, but as soon as you back up, and of course you have movement, then the spread starts to really kick in. That's why I kind of talk about the 20 meter mark, if you decide to hipfire, is really going to be your distance, especially if you're trying to be difficult to hit. Let's say there's a guy with a wingman and you want to keep up your speed and velocity and distance, or you can decide, if you can land your headshots, to do that. So the pros and cons. Again, reminder, I apologize for repeating myself on this. When you're ADS and you're moving around, you make it harder for your enemy to hit you. But you're going to lose the headshot multiplier when you ADS. If you can land your headshots and you know how to do it, ADS. Now let's go talk about breaching and building real quick. Now, whenever you're breaching and building, there's two things you can do. You can use your mobility to kind of duck and weave around a corner. So if there's an angle here and you're around here, you can kind of peek and kind of spray if you see somebody tracking, kind of track and move. Or, again, you can go for the headshot and try to track. Now, the downside, remember, is if you come in and somebody's ducking and weaving, it's harder to hit the person who's ducking and weaving. If they're predictable, they could ADS and do the same thing. It depends on your weapon set. It really depends. Like, if you're using a Spitfire and you entry, you definitely should probably hipfire this. Now, if you're going to entry and you're going to do this, you're the slowest moving target in the world, and somebody is most likely going to land the headshot on you, because, I mean, you really can't move a whole lot compared to the alternator where you could kind of breach and come in at that angle. So be smart with your weapon choice. Your weapon choice changes everything of whenever you ADS or whenever you hip fire. The same thing happens whenever you are going for a Kraber shot. I mean, you'll notice the velocity says 100, same thing, 173, that's your base. When you ADS, it's down to 60. Notice that your Spitfire is almost as slow as your Kraber. So just get a feel for this. Just hop in the test range and notice if you have a high movement weapon, maximize on that by using Hipfire at close range, because it will throw enemies off. So another comparison, just to really hit the nail on the head. You'll notice 69 here at 0.4, it's a solid number, right? And 147. So it's not a bad thing to go in with the Volt and kind of duck and weave this way. You're losing a bit, but you garner a lot more accuracy compared to the Devotion where you'll just spray and pray, right? So weapon choice is everything. Know your engagement. Understand the 20-meter mark whenever Hipfire starts to tarnish. And also realize a last-minute thing whenever you're hip firing, especially with the shotguns, because those shotguns are going to be doing a lot more hip fire than ADS, especially with the choke. So last little tip and guide and tutorial here for you, especially when you have auto run on. So when you're moving forward, this is very straightforward, right? Now, if you have auto run on, this is another big thing that happens, is that it kind of discombobulates your shots. If you notice, you see that because you're trying to run. Just be mindful of that with certain guns when you're trying to run and you have auto run on. Sometimes it's fine, but you have to spam it, because otherwise you'll get your shot interrupted. This is one thing I've learned about auto run. It's why you would prefer to walk. See how it's a lot more consistent when you're walking? Now we're going to do the same thing when you're auto running. It can interrupt your shot if you're not shooting fast enough, which is going to lower your DPS. That's a major tip, major tip there for you guys with your auto run. You have to either be spamming it fast enough, or you're going to run into the issue whenever you're just when you're walking, that it's going to stop. And this is even more noticeable whenever you have shots like this. You notice the gun gets put away, and you do not want the gun to get put away. And of course, when you ADS, you can have the PK shot, but of course, going for the major spread here is a lot more beneficial. You don't really need the choke. A lot of pros tend to not run the choke, because the thing is, like, okay, you're going to go for the choke and get the shot, but realistically the cone still hits every shot at this point blank range anyway, so there's no reason to ADS. So there's that pro and con in terms of the shotguns as well. So the same thing really applies to, well, the plus side is that if it's a gun, once you're already auto walking, you don't have to worry about it. It mostly applies to the shotgun, what I just mentioned from before, because when you're spraying a weapon, the spray animation already kicks in. This really happens with the EVA and some of the other shotguns depending on the rate of fire. I apologize if this video was a little longer than intended, but hopefully there's a lot of tips to really help you out here. Leave a question, or if you have any questions, leave a comment down below. I'll be more than happy to answer. And hopefully this was informative to help you to make the decision of when you ADS or when you hipfire, and just know the pros and cons of every single weapon. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.